guys, and welcome back to Extra Extra. So it's just me today. So I am going to go ahead and don't care. I'm going to go ahead and just get into it and then get into housekeeping. And welcome to the podcast where the world is hell and we're all living in it. I'm the Dean of Games, the Dean Slater on all platforms. And again, no one's joining me today, it's just me. I'm going to be putting this out as soon as I get it recorded. And then tomorrow we'll probably be recording next week's episode. So, yay! This is Extra Extra, your weekly gaming news podcast, covering the news leading up to Tuesday, May 14th, 2024. And if you like us, you can go to patreon.com/thebriefing-room. Let's get to housekeeping and then to some news. Okay. So lots been going on, right? This room that I'm in, I had to move to this room from the room that I was in, because the room that I was in, I moved all the stuff from that. Well, obviously there's still stuff in here. Moved all the stuff from this room into that room. And then I'm going to move the rest of this stuff in. And then Gavin's going to move his stuff from the living room. You know, and it's just, everything's moving around. Everything's changing. There's so much going on right now. And on top of that, it's spring, so there was yard work that I needed to do. The initial yard work is always the worst. Once you get the initial yard work done, then the upkeep's fine. But it's just that initial burst that's like, oh my god. So had all that going on. Then I had family stuff going on. And during all of this, I was in the process of switching casters for this podcast. And when I went to go switch over, there was an issue that I had to end up going between the two companies. And then my subscription for the other company ended up running up, which is why I was switching in the first place. It ended up running up, so I couldn't do anything because it hadn't been switched over fully yet. But we're back, baby! And I know I've said this in the past, but there has been slight change that might actually make things progress quicker. As you know, I have another channel, the Briefing Room channel, which is I'm treating as like the parent company of, you know, this channel. But I have not put up very many videos on that recently for several different reasons that I won't get into too much here just because it's not really relevant. But I am in pre-production on a couple things. I know I've said that before. But this time, these are different projects that I'm in pre-pro on. And it's because I have someone that's actually interested in joining me and has similarly aligned goals, which I really haven't had since Landon. But Landon, I love Landon, but the only thing he was really interested in was this podcast, which is fine. That alone gave me enough motivation to get this podcast on a roll, and I can never be any more grateful to him for that, even though like life has gotten in his way and he just cannot do the podcast as often anymore. But I found someone that's got similar aligned goals as far as what their passions are and what their dreams are. But I'm sure we'll discuss that when we get to that. I'll let them tell their side of the story. I won't give their life story here, but Yeah, I'm very excited about that. I'm excited to work with them and get that channel off the ground again. And so that's been everything going on. Before we actually get to the news stories, though, I guess I could treat this as a news story, because I do have to put a trigger warning on it. Oh boy! So if you don't want to listen to this next part, just click on the next timestamp, and you can skip this whole thing. It's about some gross things and behavior and so forth. So today, specifically today, that I'm recording this, a clip went viral of a female streamer that had unmuted voice chat, and there was a guy that said something that's very inappropriate, not funny at all, and just not even good trash talk, which is what his defenders, why would you need to have defenders for saying something like that? That's clearly just awful. Have been saying was trash talk. It's not even good trash talk. And so I just want to make it clear, in case it hasn't been clear in the past, about how we feel about that kind of behavior and women in gaming in general. We love women here at the Briefing Room and the XofPlays, and those people can go fuck themselves. But even more than that, listen, if you think that's something that's appropriate to say under any condition, I hate to break it to you, but it's not. And listen, I'm sorry that your mother never loved you, but you'll never know what is appropriate and what isn't appropriate to say unless you actually get out there and go experience life with people. Just sitting on the couch in your parents' basement playing games all day and sleeping with your cum-covered sheets instead of taking showers, that's just not going to cut it, man. It's just not. You're making a fool of yourself if you think that that's what people want. And there are ways to improve yourself, like touching grass or washing your hands after you go to the bathroom. Maybe cut down on the Cheetos and Mountain Dew, just there's a lot you can do. And that's how you trash talk people. All right? That's actual trash talk, not threatening to do things that are very bad to people. God, what is the world coming to? Speaking of what is the world coming to, let's talk about corporations that have far more control over what happens in the world than what the people that actually have to live in the world do. Oh boy! So, both Xbox and PlayStation have just been tripping over themselves. Right? Just, okay, I'm just that kind of level of ineptitude has been going on in the time that we've been gone. And yeah, it's not the most relevant or recent stories out there, but they were big enough that during our little unwanted hiatus that I figured we'd talk about them. So let's start with PlayStation, shall we? They decided to do this thing where they made it mandatory to link your PlayStation Network ID with your Steam ID if you're playing on PC for Helldivers. Which, keep in mind, Helldivers is much bigger on PC than it is PlayStation. Like, much bigger. And to the people that have said, every company does this, or they said it on the game page that they were going to do it, I understand that point. All right, those points, I guess I should say. I understand that. But here's the thing. They were selling it in countries that don't have access to PSN. So they should have, if that was the case, they should have just not sold to those countries. A. Point B is, yes, other companies do it. But, and yes, it's on the game page, but most of those companies either A, do it when the game launches, or B, they give players enough time. Like the instance that I immediately thought of, going back to Xbox for a second, is they decided that, you know, people playing Minecraft on PC, they wanted to just move on from Mojang accounts and just have them have live accounts. And I believe, I don't have the numbers on me, but I believe they gave like 8 months to a year to switch over. It was a very long time. And the game told you that every time you logged in. Hey, you have 6 months. Hey, you have 5 months. Hey, you have 4 months. They gave you very clearly a time frame. And it was a long time frame for people that would have been upset to then kind of calm down and be like, you know what? It's not a big deal. I'll just go ahead and do this. They gave plenty of opportunities for that. PlayStation, when they finally got their shit together, said, you have a month. Yeah, people are going to be upset. If you had given them a longer period of time, the people that were upset would have eventually calmed down and just done it. Because, as people pointed out during this controversy, it's really not that big of a deal. It's annoying, but it's not that big of a deal. Or, alternatively, because they already fucked up and didn't have it at launch, they could have just been like, you know what? We're not doing it. We wanted to do it, but we can't because we've already sold you this game. And so it's not really right for us to ask that of you. They're a corporation, so you know they weren't going to do that. And even now, well, we'll get to that in a minute. So, as gamers do, they're like, yeah, we won! We changed some numbers on a review screen! And that's not what changed PlayStation's mind. What changed PlayStation's mind is Valve started issuing refunds. And that was going to end up coming back on Sony. So Sony's like, whoa. We don't want to lose money. We'll change it. But funny thing is, even with the gamers, funnier than the gamers thinking that they had any say in the change of decision whatsoever. The funniest thing is that Helldivers 2 still isn't being sold on in any of those countries even now. So who knows about that, guys? Who knows? But they it's just one of those things, you know, just be more upfront. Yes, it was on the game page. You could have had some sort of notification that was very clearly visible. Even have a pop-up when people open up the games. Hey, this will have the integration. Or even just for, you know, just decide to forget about it initially if you're not going to have it at launch. But investors need to tell those investors, hey, we look at how many new subscriptions we got. Aren't we the coolest? And the investors would be like, yeah, Sony, PlayStation, you're so cool. We want to see how many other cool things you do to make us money. And PlayStation would be like, you got it. That's my interpretation of capitalism. So again, they were tripping all over themselves. Luckily, they did say that the release that's coming out to PC soon, Ghost of Tsushima, they did actually make it very clear that to play the multiplayer, you would need the PSN at launch. Let's hope it stays at launch. And then you don't need it for the single player stuff. Goodness. I'm tired. So yeah, that's what's been going on with them. And now let's go on to Xbox. Oh man, these are the people that control our lives. These are the people that influence the politicians to make policy. Oh my God. So, Xbox closed 2 studios and consolidated another one. One of those studios had a game that was very successful. That was so successful, in fact, that they knew that they could get even more success by moving it to other platforms, which they did. And they did well on those platforms. And they're like, you're not working on a game. Why don't you hit the road, Jack? So of course I'm talking there about Tango Gameworks. And the other thing is they have been putting so much effort into getting into the Japanese market. And then they get rid of their Japanese studio. What the fuck? So they're like, hit the road, Jack. And then the next day, Matt Booty goes, we need smaller, more prestigious titles. Did you forget that you fucking closed down the team that brought you a smaller, more prestigious title in Hi-Fi Rush yesterday? And you canceled them because they didn't have any projects in the works. All the teams you're saying this to have projects in the works. It's far too fucking late now. What the fuck are you talking about? And then Sarah Bond was asked about all of that. And look, there's nothing against these individuals. But oh my God, she gave literally the worst answer I've ever seen any executive give to anyone for any interview ever. I was sympathetically embarrassed for her. And again, going back to me understanding what people were saying about that, I understand that what probably happened is Xbox was more or less flying under the radar of Microsoft up until this point when they bought Activision and had to go through all of these court trials and this rigmarole. And now they're under a microscope. And a Microsoft scope, if you will. That's the joke for the podcast. And so they decide, you know what? We're under the microscope. They're telling us we need to cut back on the expenses. What's the easiest thing to cut? Oh, let's cut the teams that don't have any active development going on. I understand that point. It makes sense when you think about it that way. But what doesn't make sense is one of those teams, the other team has brought you good stuff before, but had an admitted miss in Redfall. But this other team brought you a diamond in the rough. And you just throw them back into the sand lion mouth. And you're like, job's done. I'm so sick and tired of hearing these stories about layoffs. I'm so sick and tired of hearing about these companies that do nothing and then are like, oh, we're not making money because we're doing nothing. Let's just fire everyone. Like, Embracer. A couple months ago, I brought this up on the podcast before too. A couple months ago, after they finally finished with their restructure, they're like, all right, we're done with our restructure. They're telling this to investors, and the investors are like, so when are we going to start buying stuff again? What? What the fuck are you talking about? Middle Earth Enterprises and Friends is the best you could go. I hate corporations. I hate them so much. And yes, I work for a corporation, for anyone that doesn't know. It doesn't mean I like them. Not in the slightest. But I need to feed my kids because these companies are like, oh, we need more and more money. Let's just take it out of the consumers' pockets. Let's take it out of our employees' pockets. It's fine. Nothing bad could possibly happen when we make a dystopian future where no one can afford anything, even if they work for us. And so I need to stop before I get too far. Needless to say, both of them are just tripping over themselves, trying to make things work. And I don't know that they can, because they've got this in their heads that they're the only ones that know how to run a business. And even though they've been doing a shitty job so far, I'm gonna stop before I get too mad. Enterprises and Friends. Oh my fucking god. What was that name? If you liked, or even if you didn't like this podcast, be sure to do all of the things, like hitting the like button and hitting the bell, hitting the subscribe button and hitting the bell on YouTube, or giving it a high rating on whatever podcast service you use, which some of you fuckers aren't doing. Look, if you're one of these sad little boys that hate women and hate men that don't hate women, you're never going to find any other friends unless you give us a high rating and find each other through your hatred for us. But they can't find the podcast if you don't give it a high rating. Simple as that. Be sure to tell people about the show. Word of mouth is the best way to help us grow. And I brought it up before, but on patreon.com/thebriefingroom, you can get cool rewards and financially support the show. That's all from us. Take care.